before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Giving his thoughts on the current pro wrestling landscape, CM Punk gave a ton of credit to AEW, telling the hashtag show, "It depends on your perspective. It depends on how grumpy I am that day. You can go either way. You can say that, oh man, wrestling's dying. Or you can say, well, look at it. It's thriving. For the first time, there's a second company that's viable, and I'm not going to say it's a viable threat. It's just a viable, healthy company. A second place where men and women can get paid to wrestle in ring on television. I know there's people that think Dynamite is the greatest thing in the world. There's people that think Dynamite isn't good. People that think it's somewhere in the middle. It could be better. But because we're having that conversation, I suppose pro wrestling is thriving." When it comes to potential plans for Kevin Owens, now that Triple H is head of creative in WWE, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reported that this left many wondering where Owens was and what was going on with him. With repeated references over the years of Owens being a Triple H guy, fans expected him to be heavily featured on the program. We've not heard of an injury or anything like that. Instead, we're told that creative is being cooked up for him for plans moving forward. Talking about the hush money scandal that led to Vince McMahon stepping down as chairman and CEO of WWE, Chris Jericho admitted that he thought McMahon would make those allegations disappear. 40 years plus of wrestling and Vince McMahon synonymous and then done. That quick. Boom. Gone. And it really did surprise me because once again, maybe because you and I live within kind of the wrestling bubbles where it's like, it's just wrestling. Nobody in the corporate world takes wrestling history. He beat the government, and he's been through the scandal, and he's been through that scandal. And this one will just go away. I was really thinking that for a while, that it was just going to be kind of a flash in the pan, and Vince would make it disappear like he did everything else. While it has not been indicated that the company is actively seeking him out, Dave Meltzer mentioned how WWE may have interest in AEW star Takeshita. A year or so, enough time to make him something. He's living here, but even if he goes back, they can bring him in anytime they want. It's not like he'll be here for a year and then they can never use him again. So the fact that they don't have him under a 5-year deal or anything like that shouldn't be incumbent on how they use him. I don't know what his deal is with DDT. WWE, if he doesn't have a full-time deal somewhere, WWE is looking for a big Japanese guy as we speak. And this guy's got some size, and he's young, and he's got a good body, and he's a fantastic wrestler. So somebody there may stumble upon him and be interested, because he's exactly what they're looking for. With Miro previously liking a tweet in regards to him having been booked better by WWE than AEW, Andrade has now done the same, as he liked this post from a fan. Tony Khan: "So, you signed Miro to AEW away from rival organization just to have him do what exactly? Didn't think I'd miss the day would come that I miss Rusev Day. He's been used worse with y'all than he was when WWE. Same goes with Andrade." Andrade has not wrestled for AEW since June 22nd, with him last competing at Ric Flair's final match at Starrcast. With MJF not being seen on programming since his pipe bomb promo from Dynamite in June, it's not known what is next for the star in AEW. On his Hall of Fame podcast, Booker T touched on MJF's potential in WWE. I'm wondering the status of MJF's contract in AEW right now. What is going on with MJF? We know he supposedly had 2 years left on his contract. I know some people have questioned whether he will do well in WWE, but I feel MJF is a guy who would get the rocket put on him in WWE and go straight to the top. I'm serious. When asked how many women he has been with throughout his life, pro wrestling legend Virgil replied on the Breadstick Diary saying, "I don't know, maybe like worldwide? Probably a million." The host would then ask Virgil, "Come on, a million?" Virgil replied, "Yep, you've got like how many people in the world?" The host then asked, "So you're claiming right now you're telling me your estimated number of women you had sex with is a million?" When it was pointed out that this would have been more sexual encounters than Ric Flair had, Virgil simply said it could have been. One fan commented writing, "Okay, I did the math. Virgil was born April 7th, 1951. For him to have been with 1 million women, that's an average of one woman every 37.5 minutes of his entire life since birth." Back in April at a WWE live event, Roman Reigns would call out his cousin The Rock, with many thinking this bout could take place at WrestleMania. Speaking about the potential for him to make a comeback, Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio, "It's the plan. It's 100% the plan for this year at WrestleMania 39. But the idea is it's the plan if he can do it. We're still months away, months and months away. So many opportunities and things like that may come up that are far more important than WrestleMania." On Busted Open Radio, AEW's Mark Henry revealed that he is dealing with a brutal spine injury that causes him to need a wheelchair in some instances, saying, "To be honest, to be completely transparent, I got nerve damage is why I don't wrestle, in my back, in my SI joint. It will just go out and I'll be on the ground, and there have been times where I do too much at AEW and I have to take a wheelchair through the airport, and it sucks because I'm prideful, and I hate it when I can't walk through the airport. Feels like my leg is on fire. I'm not saying for a pity party for me. I'm saying that Darren Drozdov is in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, paralyzed from the chest down. I know countless other guys that are on canes and in wheelchairs too. My doctor told me, hey man, you know you can surgically get that fixed. And he said, don't do it until you can't walk no more. He's like, let that be your last alternative. So I feel it, but I'm not there yet. You know what I'm saying? Due to the increased sales of WWE 2K22 from their previous iteration, it was said by WrestleNomics that a new game is already in the works. Take-Two Interactive, parent of 2K Sports, just reported earnings, mentioning WWE 2K22 as one of its largest contributors to net bookings, units sold, and net revenue for the quarter. WWE 2K23 is listed among Take-Two's future releases with a date in fiscal 2023. Take-Two's fiscal year ends March 31st. When asked about the prospect of becoming a 17-time world champion in WWE, John Cena told the crowd at Comic-Con Wales, "That's a very difficult question. Like I said, I know I'm not done in the ring, but I am realistic with where I'm at in my life. I'm 45, and I can tell you from being a 16-time champion, it is very tough to win. The top of that mountain is a young man's game. So I'm not done in the ring, but I'm not certain that that's in the cards. We'll see. There are stories yet to be told, because if I'm in the ring, I got a chance. I'm just saying I've been there, so kudos to the young guys doing it." In some unfortunate news, pro wrestling star Mike Masters, known for his unbreakable full Nelson, has recently passed away, with it said that PWInsider.com has had to report the passing of professional wrestler Michael Rocky Jones, who performed for the WWF and New Japan Pro Wrestling in the late 1970s and early 80s following a battle with throat cancer. Jones, a truly nice guy, was 68 years old at the time of his passing. He had been in hospice for some time following the return of cancer after beating it previously. Over the course of his career, Jones worked a number of territories around the world before passing what he learned onto the next generation. Providing an update on his health, AEW star Malakai Black noted that he was nearly forced into retirement, writing, "Till about 3 months ago I was dealing with a back injury I was convinced was going to force me into retirement. But after a literal year of treatment that went from working to complete failure on several occasions, we all of a sudden hit the correct vertebrae during a dry needling session and everything released. From there we were able to rehab and strengthen. You can check video 2 of this horrendous view and my personal reaction to it, however allowing me now a few months later to slowly move back into deadlifting and a few more compound moves." Yesterday, Ringside News reported on issues with the AEW president's behavior backstage, as it was said that in the past month, Tony Khan has become impossible for anyone to deal with. It's not just the communication issues with talent, it's also how he acts on headsets. People who have worked in WWE say he's much worse on headsets than Vince ever was, and his level of unprofessionalism rivals what it used to be like when Kevin Dunn would start yelling at people and mocking them on headsets. The story about Tony Khan's behavior continues. We are told that a high-ranking backstage name quit the company after an explosive night on the headset, and Khan had to chase him down to beg him not to quit. Now adding to this, Steve Carrier has noted that in a follow-up to our report about Tony Khan's backstage behavior, another individual has reached out and confirmed our report. The atmosphere in AEW recently is being described as chaos and worse than normal. On his podcast, Nature Boy Ric Flair touched on his final match from July 31st on StarCast, saying he regrets having said it would be his retirement bout. I wish I hadn't said it was my last match. That's gonna get heat. Hell, they wanted me to wrestle in Puerto Rico in Saturday night. I said, guys, I cannot get in the ring 1 week later. And the guy looked at me and said, well, you know what? Could retire in Puerto Rico, can't you? No, that's not the point. Flair would also hit back at a fan that claimed he is kissing up to WWE after they put him back in the intro package for their shows. Somebody with no social media telling me on my social media said, why are you kissing WWE's ass for putting you back up on the screen? And I said, because I'm thankful they did. Who doesn't want to be on the opening or Raw of SmackDown or the opening of a pay-per-view? What wrestler wouldn't want that? And I continue to kiss WWE's ass because Charlotte Flair works there, because they've given me the life I would have never thought. With some AEW stars like MJF seemingly unhappy with the company, Dustin Rhodes gave advice to talent who won out, telling Fandom Spotlight, you got so many places you can go now, but 2 places that really stand out are ours and theirs. You have to want one of those 2, and whatever you do, just make the best of it. If your contract's up and you've had enough with AEW, go, get out. Talking to Renee Paquette about a potential return to WWE, AEW star Miro noted why that is not likely. It's different, just listening to Sheamus and all these guys. Just knowing he's 4 or 5 days on the road, it's too much. I don't want to do that, especially right now. Knowing that eventually, I want to do something else. I want to work towards that. Known as the godfather of grappling judo legend, Gene LeBell, who inspired stars like Bryan Danielson and Ronda Rousey, recently passed away. As former UFC champion, Boss Rutan wrote on Facebook, sad news. The great Gene LeBell, toughest man I know, has passed away and left us at the age of 89. The first picture is in October 1996. After I fought in Japan and came to the States to check things out here because I've always loved America and was thinking about moving here. I was teaching at the LAPD, many more fighters were there teaching as well. I was teaching leg locks and I had this weird guy with red hair screaming after I put my partner in a leg lock. Perfect, love it. I thought, who is that weird guy? He kept shouting compliments, so I felt really good, and afterward my buddy came to me and told me I had to meet the legend. That is Gene LeBell. Oh man, I had heard stories about him and now I realized it was the guy with the red hair. So freaking awesome. What a man. What a men's man. Everybody loves Gene. We all heard the crazy stories about Seagal, and that he was the first guy to fight MMA in a match against the boxer Milo Savage in 1963. I wasn't even born. Still pulling wheelies on his motorcycle when he was like 84 years old. If you go online, you find thousands more stories. I've always loved Gene. Every single person I know loves Gene, and I'm proud to say that we always had fun when we met, always cracking jokes. My wife would say crazy means crazy. Him and Gakor, man, Gene would choke out his students. They would wait in line to get choked out by Gene. Then Gakor would have a glass of water with him, and once the guy was out cold, he would throw that water over his pants so it looked like he peed himself. Hilarious. He was always telling me a story that I gave him an El Guapo t-shirt, and that he thought he could get every girl now because of the shirt. After being sent away every single time, he couldn't understand why. I mean, he was wearing an El Guapo t-shirt until somebody told him that he was wearing it inside out. Ah, he said, that was the reason. Of course, this was all one big joke. I am still the proud owner of a very cool OTF blade, or as they also call it, a sliding knife, telescoping knife, or angel blade. He gave that to me on my birthday once. We'll treasure that knife forever. The second picture is at my friend Darren's place, and the last one was at an MMA event, and man, he seems to be at every single event, didn't he? My deepest condolences to his lovely wife Midge, his kids, and all his other family members and friends. You will be greatly missed, Gene. I love you, my friend. Till we meet again, Godspeed, rest in power, OSU. During that same interview, Khan would be asked if he thinks 2022 is AEW's toughest year, as he said, "I wouldn't compare that to the stuff we were going through in 2020 with the pandemic and the passing of Brody Lee. That was horrible. But with the pandemic and shows being shut down, no live fans, having to figure out ways around that, Brody getting sick." So your original question was, what was the hardest year? Yeah, that was for a multitude of reasons. Like I was saying, I don't think those are all necessarily bad things. The wrestling business is benefiting, I think, in a lot of ways from changes. You asked about it with the injuries. Well, we've responded pretty well to those, and people that have been out for a variety of reasons are all starting to come back. There's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, and we're getting close to the end of that tunnel in many ways. Paige would also note how she is feeling about a potential return to in-ring action. "I feel fantastic. I really do feel fantastic. I still have the mental block of, oh my god, if I was to get in the ring, what if? If I was to have to be in the ring, it would be for a really big moment to wrestle. I'll do promos here and there for big companies, but to actually wrestle, it would have to be a really big moment. I would love to face Sasha again. For real, it ended the way it did." With Triple H in charge of WWE Creative, there are many previously released stars that fans can see making a return. When it comes to Bray Wyatt, Sean Ross Amplified recently said, "You all want me to run a report tomorrow why some WWE higher-ups believe they are more likely to regain Bray Wyatt now than before?" John Cena would also join in on the speculation of Wyatt's WWE return, posting a picture from their Firefly Funhouse match. On talk is Jericho. Goldberg spoke about his stiff kick to Bret Hart during a match from Starrcade in 1999, which left Hart concussed and ultimately shortened his career. Goldberg mentioned how Hart continues to take shots at him publicly, as he said, "Yeah, but I get it. I mean, I understand to a point, but I'm like, yeah, 100%. Bret Hart is still up here, man. He's an idol to anybody and everybody who would have ever been in this business. I'm a human being like everybody else. There was absolutely no malicious intent whatsoever. None. Zero. So, does it bother me? Yeah. I'll take it to my grave. But also, I gotta say, man, I am kinda at a turning point. I am done saying I'm sorry. I have said it a million times. I'm not gonna continue to tear myself down. I'm done. I said I'm sorry. If you can't accept my apology, it is what it is. You gotta move on. And I've moved on. So I won't be breaching this subject too much more." Talking on the sessions, former WWE star Paige touched on private photos and videos being leaked in 2015. "It was just the most awful moment of my life. The person that I was with at the time showed me a picture on Twitter. I couldn't believe it was real at first because I was like 19. I was completely mortified. I ran out the house, and I just kept running. I always remember this. I was literally just sitting in this bush because I was just like, if people recognize me, they're gonna know. I felt so stupid to have trusted this person. It was a lesson learned. Never do that again. I felt so embarrassed. I was already a cokehead at this time and loved to drink. It got me to rock bottom where I didn't want to live anymore. It was awful. I was so sad. I remember being like, if my dad is disappointed in me, I don't think I can be here anymore. It got to the point, I called him, he said, "You have to suck it up. It's going to hurt for a while. People are going to make fun of you forever, but I just want you to know that I'm still proud of you." Hadn't really had a lot of friends still at that point in Florida. I moved into this apartment and I started talking to my neighbor Michelle. She introduced me to friends. Then I started making more friends in FCW as there's more girls that were coming in and they're like, "We're gonna go out." So I said, "Okay, I'll go out with you." Then you just make more friends and more friends. I had this ex-boyfriend that I ended up becoming friends with his friends. You start meeting people and it's just the wrong group of people. Never really had a childhood because I was constantly wrestling and trying to get to WWE. We started hanging around this guy that dealt coke and stuff like that. So he would constantly have some on him. You're up all night and you're paranoid. It was a whole spiral. Talking to NBC Sports about a potential WWE comeback, Rob Van Dam said that would be awesome, yeah. You know what, I kind of feel like if they wanted me there, then I would be there. It would make it so that I would want to be there, without having any just being on the fence and not feeling hungry or either way, just whatever happens, happens, like RVD is. I kind of feel like that. I don't know what they want to do, what their plan is, what their agenda is for all their talent now. Seems like they want more normal looking people that normal looking people can relate to, maybe, but I really don't even know. It's whatever, but I'm around. When it comes to reports that Bray Wyatt could be gearing up for a return to WWE with Triple H as the head of creative, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reported an idea has been pitched for Wyatt's return. One talent said that he could tell by last year that Vince McMahon was simply done with Wyatt and just didn't like him personally. McMahon would shout derogatory things at Bray about his physique, which the talent believes actually stemmed from the fact that Wyatt would often criticize the lack of creative direction that his stories or characters would go to. When word emerged of Bray having a bad attitude, that came from those who worked directly with Vince McMahon. There were also several other instances of rumors started within that circle to ease the heat off of WWE for releasing him. Those that worked with him heavily were quick to shoot down those rumors, which aren't worth mentioning now. One WWE higher-up said Vince McMahon had reservations whenever Wyatt's name was brought up post-release. Another talent recalled that saying that type of thing is why they specifically didn't push back on their creative, because if Wyatt could get fired, they certainly didn't feel safe. When the firing was cited as budget cuts, that was another hit to morale for several we'd spoken to at the time. One talent said, if he makes the company money hand over fist and they use budget cuts as an excuse, what am I? That talent has since been let go by the company. While many are expecting Banks and Naomi to return and be a part of the women's tag team tournament, the Wrestling Observer newsletter noted that on the SmackDown side, they've announced Raquel and Aaliyah versus Shotzi and Xia Li, and Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark of NXT versus Natalya and Deville. Sky and Kai are the favorites. If they make the finals, it presumably won't be on pay-per-view, since they already announced Sky and Kai for a trios match on September 3rd. This being announced right as Naomi and Banks are expected back is probably not a coincidence, and I guess the idea is for them not to be in the tournament and have them surprise appear later. With them reportedly already agreeing to terms on a return, it remains to be seen when the two step back in the ring. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.